I reached a major turning point in my own writing life on the day that I threw a book against the wall. It was one of my favorite mystery writers, and she had her private investigator hesitate to get into an elevator with a seedy old landlady because the woman must have weighed over 200 pounds. I realized at the time that was a fat joke, but it opened my eyes to the prejudice that I'd been sort of skating past, and I realized that I wanted to write a book where the heroine was accepting of herself as she is. And there's a little bit of a problem with that because the language of loathing is very much ingrained in our culture. If you want to look at it, you almost have to look away to avoid it. It's very hard to not see it. But the language of positive, body positive, and supportiveness toward fat characters almost had to be invented. I mean, it takes an effort of will to do that. So it took a few years. And I finally managed to write about a sleuth of size who doesn't apologize. The vast majority of novels, fat characters have three main roles. There's the ever popular fat villain, and the author can use a great deal of negative language and borrow some of the negativity that's already in our culture toward fatness to make the villain seem even more horrible. There's the fat sidekick. Sometimes this character can also be used as comic relief. And of course, there's the character that's introduced just so that the author can make a fat joke at their expense. There's many of these. They've kind of taken the place of the kind of casual racism, sexism, homophobia, and anti-Semitism that we used to see in novels really up until the 70s. It's no longer in fashion now, but fat bashing very much is. And then, of course, we have the character who begins the book as a miserable fat person and then goes on a journey of self-discovery that includes losing weight. And as the author draws the curtain at the end of the book, the characters lost weight and become acceptably human. The author of this kind of book has an advantage in that, unlike real life, the book stops and the reader can assume that the person will go on to live their life as a thin person, whereas the reality of weight loss is 95% of the people who lose weight generally regain it within 5 years. It's a well-documented statistic, but fiction, of course, can be fictional. My character, Josephine Fuller, and beginning in Larger Than Death, is a sleuth of size who doesn't apologize. And here's the first few lines of that book. Of Larger Than Death. My name is Josephine Fuller, and I've never weighed less than 200 pounds in my adult life, not counting the chip on my shoulder. Friends sometimes call me Donna Quixote, because tilting windmills is what I do for a living. How did I get started? I entered an ad in the San Francisco Chronicle. Need person of substance for special assignments. Part bloodhound, part bulldog, part lone wolf. Job requires quick study, travel, and communication skills. Must genuinely care about the advancement of women. As a matter of fact, I was feeling quite concerned about the advancement of women in general, and myself in particular, at the moment I read the ad. I had just landed in San Francisco for a breather and a much-needed infusion of salaried work after divorcing my husband, a world-class photographer, adventurer, and philanderer. In other words, I needed a job. Nothing permanent. After all, I hadn't stayed in one place for more than a few months for years. I went on to write 3 more Josephine Fuller mysteries. But in the early 2000s, the publishing industry went through a kind of an upheaval. And essentially, those of us that we call mid-list writers, a great many of us with the lower sales, not the best-selling authors that you know so well, essentially the publishing industry cut off the lower third of the ladder that some of us were clinging to the bottom rungs of. And we didn't know what we were going to do, a lot of us. My agent, as she then was, asked me if I could write a women's novel. And I didn't know what that was. It turns out what she was trying to not say was, could I write a chick lit novel, which is really kind of a romantic comedy with a smart aleck narrator. And was kind of similar to the mysteries that I was writing, so I gave it a try. my romantic comedy novel eventually became known as Bride of the Living Dead, and it's about a plus-size indie film critic who is really most comfortable wearing monster movie t-shirts and blue jeans, but falls in love, wants to get married, and through family drama, she is roped into having her older, control freak, anorexic sister plan the wedding. So here's the first few pages of Bride of the Living Dead. Big Dead. First chapter is called The Incredible Shrinking Bride. I hate weddings. If you had an older sister like Sky, you would too. I'm Daria, the rebellious indie film critic, the fat sister. Nobody expected me to get married. Not that I didn't have a love life, or at least a sex life, but I'll talk about the worst boyfriend awards later. 8 years after Sky's wedding, the rose petal perfection of it all still hung over me like a mocking pink cloud. Sky was perfect. Her wedding was perfect. It almost killed her. Starving to get into Grandma's wedding dress put Sky in the hospital. And if that hadn't put me off weddings, meeting my sister's fiance, Richard Standish, vaporized even the tiniest shred of envy I might have felt towards Sky. I started to get suspicious when she refused to let me even pack my Wasp Woman t-shirt for the trip to Connecticut. But Sky, it's a classic Roger Corman movie. Look at it. I am looking at it. Her eyebrows were raised, and her chin lowered in her majorly disappointed by my little sister look. I read from the movie poster on the shirt front. A beautiful woman by day, a lusting queen wasp by night. See, it has a kind of honeymoon theme. Maybe it was the graphic, with the little man getting the life sucked out of him by a giant female wasp. Sky shook her head. Please don't bring it. And promise me you will never wear any of your t-shirts around Richard or his family. This one should be right up their alley, Sky. They're wasps, right? They are white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, yes. Giant, life-draining insects from another planet? No. If they have no sense of humor, I wouldn't be so sure about that, I muttered. They laugh at things, Sky said. It's just a different kind of jokes. Okay, Daria. Please, don't screw this up for me. Don't worry, I won't. So I took out all the fun t-shirts and packed plain cotton blouses. Anyway, the sisterly contest in Bride of the Living Dead was a lot of fun. But after the romantic comedy was done, I realized I didn't have anything more to say about love and marriage. This book was published by Pearl Sun Press. It's still around. But I needed to shed some blood, and I didn't want to have to bring the killers to justice the way that you do in a mystery. So the only answer was vampires. Only I wanted a fat vampire. Moreover, I wanted to see the premier fat rogue in literature, Sir John Falstaff, as a vampire. So I wrote The Falstaff Vampire Files. The Falstaff character was so strong that the minute I let him out of the coffin, he knew exactly where he wanted to go in San Francisco, what he wanted to do, and who he wanted to pay for it. Hint, not him. So I also had a lot of fun with introducing the characters from what's been called the Falstaffiad plays to the characters in Dracula. And if you remember Dracula, they were using a lot of newfangled, recently invented devices like typewriters and shorthand. And so I decided that the characters in the Falstaff Vampire Files would use modern recording devices. So here's a chapter, Sir John Falstaff's words on a black digital recorder, undated. I am little better than a man trapped in amber, and what a prodigious stone 'twould take to hold my entirety. Time to reset that stone. I whisper in the dark into this small black lump, like a weightless stone, and it whispers back my words. Hal gave it me to learn my secrets while I slept, as if I did not know how to hide it from the daylight and from him. If they could hear this smooth stone repeating my words back to me, the folk I knew where I was born would burn me as a witch, if not as a vampire first. If I can elude their clutches for centuries, can I not sidestep this nosy pup? If I whispered my secrets to anyone who asked, I would not have lived 100 years past my first death. I had a lot of fun with the Falstaff vampires, and another Falstaff vampire books in the works. Try to keep you posted. Pearl Song Press has my books. And you can reach me on my website or Facebook if you have any questions or comments. Thank you for listening. And to everyone, live large and prosper.